The grand chamber of the Galactic Council floated in the darkness between three dying stars. It was a sphere made of crystallized starlight, 12 kilometers wide, hanging in the void like a frozen dream. Inside, representatives from 847 spacefaring civilizations sat in rising tiers that disappeared into the haze above. The chamber smelled of recycled atmosphere, an ancient power dot at the center, suspended by invisible gravity tethers. Stood a single human male. Marcus Webb looked impossibly small against the immensity surrounding him. He was 52 years old, with gray hair and calloused hands. He wore the same work clothes he had been wearing when they took him from his home. A maintenance engineer from Montana, standing before the most powerful governing body in the known galaxy. High, Arbiter the Sandris spoke first. He was not a creature of flesh and blood. He was a geometric storm of shifting angles and impossible shapes that hurt the eyes to look at directly. His voice bypassed ears entirely and resonated somewhere deep in the skull. Human, you stand accused of violating the preservation accord of the third spiral epoch. You entered the quarantine zone of Kepler 442b. You activated systems that were sealed by Council. Mandate for 1.7 million standard cycles. You have potentially unleashed something we buried for reasons your species cannot comprehend. Marcus cleared his throat. His voice sounded absurdly small and organic in this place of ancient power. With respect, Arbiter, I fixed the heating system. The pipes were frozen. Nervous laughter rippled through certain sections of the chamber. The younger species, the ones who still remembered what it felt like to not understand the rules. You misunderstand the gravity of your situation. The Sandris shifted, his form becoming sharper and more threatening. The outpost on Kepler 442b was not abandoned. It was sealed, condemned. The technology within predates every civilization in this chamber. We did not understand it then. We do not understand it now. And you, a creature whose species discovered fire merely 400 generations ago, you connected it to your primitive power grid and made it function. From the Velthari delegation came a ripple of alarm. The Velthari were beings of living mercury, their bodies constantly flowing and reshaping. Show us what he found. We must know the extent of contamination. A holographic display materialized in the air. It showed Marcus's small prefabricated habitat, attached like a barnacle to a vast alien structure. Data streams flowed across the projection. Energy signatures pulsed. System activations blinked. And something else appeared too. A pattern that the Council's analysts had been trying to decode for 3 days without success. Before we determine your punishment, the Sandris continued, you will explain. How did a human, a species that still measures technological progress in decades rather than millennia, activate the Forerunner archive? Marcus looked at the projection of his humble home, attached to alien architecture that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. He thought about the morning 3 months ago when his heating had failed and he had traced the wiring into the old section, looking for a junction box. You want to know how I fixed it? We want to know how you survived. Same answer. Marcus reached into his pocket. 100,000 weapons locked onto him instantly. He heard the hum of targeting systems from every direction. Slowly, carefully, he pulled out a small notebook. It was handwritten, filled with diagrams and notes in blue ink. I read the manual. Silence fell across the chamber. Absolute, crushing silence that seemed to have physical weight. There was no manual, whispered the ambassador from the Kyrathi Collective. The Kyrathi were renowned throughout the galaxy for their information archives. They had spent 200,000 years studying Forerunner artifacts. We searched for 200,000 years. There was, Marcus said. You just couldn't read it. 6 months earlier, Marcus Webb had been looking for somewhere to disappear. His marriage had ended badly. His relationship with his adult children had become a series of awkward phone calls and avoided topics. After 30 years as a facilities engineer for industrial complexes across Earth and its colonies, he had realized something painful. He had spent his entire life maintaining other people's dreams while his own rusted. Away unused dot when the galactic community opened limited homesteading rights on approved worlds. Marcus applied for the most remote option available. Kepler 442b was a frozen rock at the edge of explored space. The listing described it honestly. Extreme cold. Solar radiation. Complete isolation. No emergency services within 3 months of travel time. One structure existed on the entire planet. An outpost built by a species that had vanished before the first single-celled organism appeared on Earth, the previous 12. Homesteaders had lasted an average of 14 months before requesting. Evacuation. Marcus arrived to find a prefabricated habitat waiting for him. Following the automated setup instructions, he connected it to the alien outpost's outer wall. Solar panels and a small fusion cell would provide power. Recycling systems would handle water and atmosphere. He would grow food in hydroponic bays. For 3 months, it was exactly what he wanted. Quiet, solitary work. Simple problems with clear solutions. The kind of life that had always made sense to him when nothing else did. Then, on the coldest night of the local winter, his heating failed. The temperature inside his habitat dropped fast. Marcus had maybe 6 hours before the cold became dangerous. He traced the power failure to a junction where his habitat connected to the alien structure. Following the wiring deeper, he discovered something unexpected. His fusion cell had somehow linked to the outpost's dormant systems. And those systems were drawing power. He should have disconnected. Should have called for help. Should have panicked and fled. Instead, driven by 30 years of engineering instinct, he followed the power drain. 3 levels down. In a chamber that had not been opened in eons, Marcus found something impossible. A wall of symbols that shifted as he watched, and a single phrase that appeared in English. Maintenance protocol initiated. Please confirm operator. Status. His hand reached for the confirmation panel before his brain could tell it to stop. Behind him. In the darkness of the alien outpost, something vast began to wake up. Back in the council chamber, the galactic representatives erupted in arguments. Marcus stood at the center of the storm, holding his notebook like a shield. Impossible, declared Ambassador Crevice of the Indari hegemony. He was a centipede like being wrapped in ceremonial metals that clicked and chimed as he moved. The Forerunner systems have no translation matrix. We have dedicated entire civilizations to decoding their language. The symbols remain incomprehensible. Not to me, Marcus said simply. Took me about a week. High Arbiter Thesandris's form flickered with something that might have been anger. Or fear. Explain this claim. Our linguists have worked for epochs. Marcus flipped through his notebook to a page covered in diagrams. Your linguists are looking for language, grammar, syntax, meaning, derived from how symbols relate to each other. He held up the page so the holographic systems could capture it and display it to the entire chamber. But Forerunner is not a language. It is a schematic system. Every symbol is a component description. The walls are not covered in words. They are covered in repair manuals. The Velthari representative flowed forward, their mercury form extending toward the holographic display. Demonstrate this. Show us. The display shifted to show an image of a Forerunner inscription, one that had puzzled researchers for 300,000 years. Marcus studied it for roughly 30 seconds. That is a pump assembly. Fluid transfer system, probably for thermal regulation. The top section shows the intake valve. Middle is the compression chamber. Bottom shows output with a pressure release mechanism. He squinted at the symbols. Looks like the seal specification might be wrong, actually. Whoever built this was working from outdated technical data. The silence that followed seemed to last for years. Then the Kyrathi ambassador spoke. His voice trembled. We decoded those specifications 4 months ago. It took us 11,000 years and the combined processing power of 7 artificial intelligences. The human is correct, including the notation about obsolete seal specifications. Marcus looked at the display again. New data was streaming in from the Kepler 442b outpost, a pattern that his engineering brain automatically translated even as he watched. His face went pale. Arbiter, he interrupted the growing chaos. We need to cut this hearing short. You do not give orders to this council, human. I know. But according to this readout, the outpost's primary system is completing its initialization sequence. I did not just activate the archive. His voice stayed steady, but his hands began to shake. I activated the Forerunner emergency broadcast. And in about 6 hours, every sealed Forerunner facility in the galaxy is going to receive the same message I did. He looked at the symbols streaming across the display. The message says, maintenance required. Send technician. The Forerunners were waking up. All of them. Everywhere. And they were waiting for someone who could read the manual. Panic spread across the Galactic Council chamber like fire through dry grass. Representatives scrambled to contact their home systems. Emergency communication frequencies overloaded with desperate signals. The careful order that had governed galactic civilization for millennia cracked and splintered in seconds. High Arbiter. The Sandras expanded his geometric form until it filled the central sphere with shifting angles of pure authority. Silence. All delegations will maintain order. The chaos dimmed, but did not cease entirely. Fear had taken root, and fear was difficult to uproot. Human. The Arbiter's attention focused on Marcus with the weight of collapsing stars. You will explain the full scope of what you have done. Marcus pulled up his notebook again, flipping to a page filled with dense technical notes. When I activated the archive, I thought I was just restoring power to a database. But Forerunner systems are networked in ways your scientists never detected. The initialization sequence I triggered was not just local. It was a ping. A request for status updates from every connected facility in the network. There are over 14,000 quarantined Forerunner sites across the known galaxy, whispered the Kyrathi ambassador. His crystalline data scales flickered with distress. Then there are over 14,000 facilities currently receiving wake-up calls. Marcus looked up from his notes. The good news is they are not actually coming back to life. The Forerunners are gone. Whatever killed them, their systems have accepted that the original operators are not coming back. And the bad news? The facilities are running diagnostic protocols, checking their systems, looking for damage, degradation, faults that have developed over time. He swallowed hard. Several thousand of those facilities contain weapons that were never meant to go this long without maintenance. If the diagnostics flagged critical failures in the wrong systems, the automated repair sequences could trigger. He did not need to explain further. Every species in the chamber understood what that meant. The Velthari, Ambassador's mercury form rippled with barely contained terror. The Cascade Arsenal. We sealed it 400,000 years ago, after it nearly sterilized an entire sector. If that facility's automated repair systems attempt to address degradation without proper guidance, it could malfunction catastrophically. It could do a lot worse than sterilize a sector, Marcus confirmed grimly. I have been reading the specifications. That thing is not just a weapon. It is a weapon factory. It builds whatever it is pointed at. And after 400,000 years, its targeting systems are probably corrupted beyond safe operation. The implications crashed through the chamber like physical blows. Marcus took a deep breath. This was the moment. The one he had been preparing for since he first understood what the Forerunners had left behind. I can help, but I need something from you first. Vessandros's form sharpened dangerously. You are in no position to negotiate. With respect, Arbiter, I am in the only position to negotiate. Marcus met the impossible gaze without flinching. You have 14,000 Forerunner facilities running diagnostics. Some of those diagnostics will flag problems. Some of those problems will trigger automated repair sequences. And some of those repair sequences will go catastrophically wrong because the facilities have degraded beyond what automated systems can safely handle. He held up his worn notebook. I can read the manuals. I can tell you which facilities are critical, which ones are stable, and which ones need immediate intervention. But I want something in return. Name your terms, human. First, I want the charges against me dropped. I did not know the outpost was quarantined. I was just trying to stay warm. Vessandros considered for a long moment. Acceptable. Continue. Second, I want Earth given full membership status in the Galactic Council. Not observer status. Not provisional membership. Full voting rights, effective immediately. Outrage erupted from a dozen delegations at once. Ambassador Krevos of the Indari hegemony physically rose on his segmented legs, his ceremonial medals chiming with fury. Impossible. Humanity has not met the technological or cultural benchmarks for membership. Your species is primitive by every standard we use. My primitive species just cracked a puzzle you have been working on for 1,000,000 years, Marcus replied calmly. And we did it because we think differently than you do. Our value is not in our technology. It is in our perspective. Right now, that perspective is the only thing standing between you and galactic catastrophe. And your third condition? Vessandros asked, silencing the protests with a pulse of authority that Marcus hesitated. This was the one that truly mattered, the one he had been thinking about since he first understood what the Forerunners had left behind in their archives. The archives on Kepler 442b contain more than repair manuals. They contain the technical specifications for everything the Forerunners ever built. Faster-than-light systems far beyond what the Council uses. Energy generation that makes your fusion technology look like burning wood. Medical technology that could extend lifespans indefinitely. He paused, letting the weight of his next words settle. And weapons. Weapons that make the Cascade arsenal look like a child's toy. The chamber went utterly silent. Even the environmental systems seemed to hold their breath. My third condition is that this technology gets shared, not controlled by the Council, not parceled out to favored species. Shared equally, with everyone, including the species you have been, keeping in developmental quarantine because you decided they were not ready for advancement. You would destabilize the entire galactic order, whispered the ambassador from the collective of ordered minds. The collective was a species of networked intelligences that had spent 200,000 years maintaining the status quo. You would tear apart everything we have built. I would give everyone the same chance, Marcus corrected. Is that not what the Forerunners wanted? They did not lock their knowledge away. They did not hide it behind tests or barriers. They just waited for someone who could understand it. Maybe they knew their time was ending and wanted to leave their work to whoever came next, whoever needed it. While the Council debated his terms, Marcus requested a communication channel to Earth. After much argument, he was granted a brief window. Monitored, of course, his daughter Elena answered. She was 43 now, a structural engineer herself. They had not spoken in 2 years. Not since the divorce had made everything awkward between them. Dad? Her face showed shock, then deep concern. What is happening? There are rumors all over the news feeds. Something about a Galactic Council emergency session. Something about you. I might have caused an incident, he admitted with a tired smile. Listen, I do not have much time. I just wanted to tell you something. Dad, what did you do? He laughed softly. I fixed the heating in my cabin. Turns out that was a bigger deal than I expected. He paused, looking at his daughter's face on the small screen. So much like her mother's, but with his eyes, with his stubborn jaw. I spent 30 years fixing other people's problems, maintaining their systems, making sure everything worked so they could live their lives. I thought that was small. I thought I should have done something more important with my time. Dad, Elena said softly. But here's the thing. The most important stuff in the universe? It is all maintenance. Everything breaks down eventually. Everything needs someone who understands how it works and how to keep it working. The Forerunners built wonders we can barely imagine. And what did they choose to preserve? Their repair manuals, their maintenance logs, the boring stuff that keeps miracles running. He smiled, really smiled, for the first time in months. I spent my whole life learning how to fix things. Turns out that is exactly what the galaxy needs right now. Are you in danger? Probably. But I am also useful, which is new and interesting. He heard the notification that his time was almost up. I have to go. But Elena, I am sorry. For all the times I was not there. All the times I chose work over family. I was afraid of breaking something I could not fix. Turns out that is no way to live. The connection terminated. Marcus turned back to face the Galactic Council, ready to hear their decision. High Arbiter Thesandrus announced the ruling. The Council accepts your first 2 conditions. The charges against you are dropped. Humanity is granted full membership status in the galactic community, effective immediately. Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders. But he knew what was coming next. However, your 3rd condition is rejected. The Council will maintain control of all archived Forerunner knowledge. It will be distributed as we see fit to species we deem ready to receive it. Marcus nodded slowly. I thought you might say that. He reached into his pocket. The same 100,000 weapons locked onto him again. But this time, he pulled out something different. A small device, assembled from components he had found in the archive before they brought him to this chamber. Before I left Kepler 442b, I uploaded the entire archive to a distributed network. Right now, it is sitting in encrypted storage across about 40,000 data nodes throughout the galaxy, including nodes in the home systems of every species that has been kept in developmental quarantine by the Council. The device in his hand blinked with a soft blue light. This is a dead man's switch. If I am killed or permanently detained, or if the Council tries to suppress what I have found, the encryption keys get released. Everything, all at once. Every specification, every blueprint, every weapon design. He looked at Thesandrus with tired, determined eyes. I am not trying to destroy your order, Arbiter. I am trying to give everyone a fair chance. The Forerunners are waking up. Their facilities need maintenance. And the galaxy is going to need every engineer it can get, not just the ones you approve of. The device pulsed steadily in his palm. So, do we have a deal? Or do we find out together what happens when 14,000 Forerunner facilities go critical without any guidance at all? Before anyone could answer, new data flooded the holographic display. An alert from the Forerunner network itself. Supervisor, unit activated. Primary facility status. Operational, assessment protocols. Initiating. Marcus read the symbols automatically. His engineering brain translating before his conscious mind could catch up. His face went pale. Oh no, what is it? Thesandrus demanded. The archive did not just send a wake-up call. It sent a maintenance request, and something answered. He pointed at the streaming data with a shaking finger. Something at the galactic core. Something that has been dormant since before your species evolved. He translated the final line of the message. It says, Supervisor dispatched. All probationary personnel will report for certification assessment. Estimated arrival, 847 standard cycles. He looked up at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. The Forerunners are not just waking up. They are sending someone to check my work. And if I fail the assessment, I do not think they are going to give me a second chance. 800 cycles remained before the supervisor arrived. 800 cycles to prevent a galactic catastrophe that was already in motion. The Galactic Council had no choice but to accept Marcus's terms. All of them. The dead man's switch remained active, and the threat of 14,000 Forerunner facilities malfunctioning simultaneously was too terrible to ignore. Technology would be shared. Quarantined species would be freed. And humanity's maintenance engineer would be given everything he needed to prepare. Marcus established his base of operations at the Kepler 442b archive. The small habitat that had once been his escape from the world became the center of the most important training program in galactic history. Engineers came from across the stars. The Galactic Council sent their best technical minds. Species that had never worked together found themselves sharing cramped quarters in the frozen outpost. United by a common purpose, not all of them succeeded. The Forerunner schematic language required a specific way of thinking. You had to see everything as components, as systems, as processes that could be understood and maintained. Many brilliant scientists struggled with this approach. They were used to asking why things worked. The Forerunners only cared about how, but some minds adapted quickly. Tomek was a Kyrithi data specialist, his crystalline scales embedded with information storage matrices. He had spent 600 years studying Forerunner artifacts without making real progress. Within 3 weeks of working with Marcus, he achieved his first independent translation. The joy on his alien face was unmistakable. David was a young human from the Mars Technical Academy, barely 25 years old. He had applied for the program on a whim, never expecting to be selected. But his mind worked naturally in schematics. He could look at Forerunner symbols and see the machinery they described as clearly as looking through a window. Flowing Silver was an elderly Velthari who had devoted 8 centuries to Forerunner research. When Marcus explained the schematic approach, the Mercury being literally flowed with excitement. Everything suddenly made sense. All those years of frustration melted away in a moment of crystalline understanding. Together, they formed the core of what Marcus called his maintenance crew. They worked through the archive's contents systematically. They learned how Forerunner systems thought. They practiced communicating with dormant facilities, using the proper technical protocols. Within 400 cycles, they had successfully stabilized 17 critical sites. Each success built their confidence. Each challenge deepened their understanding. But the real test was still coming. The supervisor unit is not just testing knowledge. Marcus explained to his assembled team as the deadline approached. They sat in the archive's main chamber, surrounded by holographic displays showing Forerunner schematics. It is testing judgment, the ability to make correct decisions under pressure, the capacity to recognize your own limitations and seek appropriate help when needed. How do you know that? David asked. Because that is what any good certification process tests. Marcus smiled tiredly. He had not slept properly in weeks. I have been through enough of them on Earth. Heating and cooling certification, electrical licensing, nuclear plant maintenance qualification. The tests are never about memorizing answers. They are about proving you can think the way the system needs you to think. And if we cannot? Flowing Silver's Mercury form rippled with concern. then we are not qualified, and the supervisor will be right to fail us. Marcus looked at his team with something like pride. But I will not be taking the test alone. We are going in together. As a crew, the supervisor unit arrived exactly on schedule. It emerged from faster-than-light space near the Kepler system without warning. One moment the space was empty. The next moment, a vessel of impossible design hung against the star's dot. It was smaller than Marcus had expected, only 2 kilometers long. But its presence felt heavier than its size suggested. More deliberate. More dangerous. The message it broadcast was simple. Assessment will commence in 12 standard cycles. Probationary personnel will present themselves at the primary maintenance interface of this unit. Marcus gathered his team. Tomek, David, Flowing Silver, and 12 others who had achieved at least basic certification in the Forerunner technical language. Commander Voss insisted on accompanying them. She was the Council's military liaison, a tall human woman with silver hair and a perpetual expression of skepticism. Someone needs to make sure you do not cause another galactic incident, she explained. The interior of the supervisor unit was different from other Forerunner facilities. It was designed for evaluation rather than production or storage. Testing chambers branched off from central corridors. Simulation spaces hummed with dormant power. And at the heart of the vessel, they found something unexpected. Not a console. Not an automated interface. A presence dot, it manifested as a shifting cloud of geometric forms, similar to High Arbiter Descendris, but older. More stable. Less concerned with how it appeared to biological observers. It simply was, in a way that hurt the mind to contemplate directly. Designation: Assessment Coordinator, 7. Status: Active. Purpose: Evaluation of maintenance personnel certification. It is not just automated. Flowing Silver whispered. Her mercury form rippled with awe. There is something conscious in there. Forerunner artificial intelligence. Or something left over from them. Something that has been waiting for a very long time, Marcus agreed quietly. Something that finally has a purpose again. The coordinators. Attention focused on Marcus with terrible precision. You claim probationary. Certification. You have accessed multiple facilities. Without full authorization. You have modified critical systems without supervision. Explain your actions. Marcus stepped forward. This was the moment everything had been building toward. I am a maintenance engineer. When I found the archive on Kepler 442b, I recognized what it was. Documentation for systems that needed care. I acted according to my training. Identify problems. Apply solutions. Document everything for the next person. He held up his warm notebook. I may not have formal Forerunner certification, but I have 30 years of experience keeping things running. I understand the principles. I understand the responsibility. Principles and responsibility are insufficient. Certification requires demonstrated competency. You will be tested. I know. But I am not here alone. Marcus gestured to his team, standing in formation behind him. These are my colleagues, engineers from species across the galaxy who have learned to read your documentation. We have been studying your systems for 800 cycles, stabilizing your facilities, preventing the failures your network has been warning about. You propose collective certification? I propose that the galaxy needs more qualified technicians than any single species can provide. Your builders knew that. That is why they designed systems that test competency rather than identity. They did not care who fixed the problems, only that the problems got fixed. The coordinator was silent for a long moment. Its geometric forms shifted through, configurations that seemed to represent deep contemplation. Acceptable. The assessment will evaluate your collective capability. All candidates will participate. The test began immediately. was the most grueling certification process Marcus had ever experienced. Complex scenarios cascaded one after another. System failures that required immediate response. Judgment calls about when to act independently and when to seek additional guidance. But it was not just about individual performance. The coordinator watched how the team worked together, how they communicated under pressure, how they handled disagreements about approach. When Marcus did not know an answer, he admitted it openly. When David spotted a solution that Marcus had missed, Marcus acknowledged it publicly and incorporated it immediately. When Flowing Silver's centuries of experience provided crucial context, the younger team members listened without ego. They worked like engineers should. Competition subordinate to cooperation. Pride subordinate to results. On the final day, the coordinator presented one last scenario. A facility experiencing cascading failures across multiple systems. Too many problems for any individual to address simultaneously. The team had to prioritize ruthlessly, delegate effectively, and trust each other's judgment completely. They lost the simulation. The facility suffered partial destruction. There was no way to save everything, but they saved 94% of critical systems, and they prevented any loss of life. Marcus stood before the coordinator as the results were calculated. His heart pounded in his chest. We failed. The facility was damaged. Negative. You succeeded. Marcus blinked in surprise. Perfect outcomes are not expected. Perfect judgment about imperfect outcomes is required. You understood that some losses are acceptable to prevent greater losses. You prioritized correctly. You communicated effectively. You operated as a maintenance collective. Should certification granted. Level. Full operational. Relief flooded through Marcus like warm water. Around him, his team celebrated. Quietly, appropriately, like engineers who knew the work was not actually finished. Just this part of it, but the coordinator was not done. One matter remains. Its attention focused on Marcus. Alone, you distributed archived knowledge without authorization. This represents a violation of information security protocols. Marcus felt his heart sink. The dead man's switch. His ultimatum to the Galactic Council. I did. I believed it was necessary to ensure fair access to knowledge that belongs to everyone. Explain your reasoning. Marcus took a deep breath. Everything depended on his answer. Your builders did not hide their knowledge behind barriers of species or politics. They made it accessible to anyone who could understand it. The current galactic order restricts that access. It keeps advanced species in control. It keeps developing species dependent on their approval. That is not maintenance. That is hoarding. He met the coordinator's impossible gaze directly. I am trying to build something better. A system where everyone has the same chance to learn, the same chance to grow, the same chance to become qualified. The coordinator considered his words for what felt like an eternity. Your analysis is consistent with primary documentation philosophy, knowledge existing solely to benefit some while excluding others. Represents a systemic inefficiency. New directive. The Forerunner Network will establish training facilities across the galactic community. Certification will be offered to all species meeting basic cognitive requirements. Technical knowledge will be distributed in accordance with certified capability. Marcus felt tears forming in his eyes. He had not expected this, had not dared to hope for it. One additional matter. The human-designated Marcus Webb is appointed primary coordinator for biological species integration. I am sorry, what? You have demonstrated competency in understanding Forerunner systems. You have demonstrated competency in training others. You have Demonstrated competency in cross-species cooperation. You are qualified. You are appointed. A geometric. Form shifted into a configuration Marcus recognized from his studies. Approval. Respect. Welcome. Do you accept? Marcus looked at his team. At the faces of beings from a dozen different species, all watching him with hope and trust. At the future they had built together. Yes, he said. I accept. The work was just beginning. But for the first time, they had the tools to do it right. The news of the certification spread across the galaxy like wildfire, burning through dry brush. Within days, every inhabited world knew the story. A human maintenance engineer had passed a test designed by beings who died before Earth formed. And he had opened doors that the Galactic Council had kept locked for millennia. The reaction was not universally positive. 3 weeks after the assessment, Marcus sat in his quarters aboard the Council flagship when alarms began screaming. Commander Voss burst through the door without knocking. We have a problem. Multiple problems, actually. The briefing room filled quickly with representatives from 17 species. Holographic displays showed a galaxy in chaos. Red markers indicated conflict zones. Yellow markers showed systems experiencing civil unrest. Blue markers highlighted Forerunner facilities that had gone dark without explanation. The Indari hegemony has closed its borders, reported a Council intelligence officer. They are refusing all diplomatic contact and have mobilized their military fleet. The collective of ordered minds has expelled all non-networked species from their territory. They claim the knowledge distribution represents an existential threat to their way of life. 17 developing species in former quarantine zones have begun aggressive expansion programs. 3 territorial conflicts have already resulted in armed engagement. Marcus stared at the map of disasters spreading across known space. This was his fault. He had pushed for immediate release of Forerunner technology. He had believed that sharing knowledge would bring civilizations together. Instead, it was tearing them apart. What did you expect? Commander Voss asked quietly. She stood beside him, arms crossed, watching the chaos unfold. You gave everyone access to the same weapons, the same power. 1,000 years of careful balance destroyed in a few weeks. I expected them to be smarter than this, Marcus admitted. I thought if everyone had equal access, no one would have an advantage worth fighting over. That is not how civilizations work. Not human ones, and not alien ones either. A new alert appeared on the display. This one was different. Gold instead of red or yellow or blue. It pulsed with urgency that demanded immediate attention. Forerunner Network Alert. Cascade Arsenal critical failure imminent. Automated containment protocols initiating. All certified. Personnel report to coordinate response. The Cascade Arsenal. The weapon factory that had nearly sterilized a sector 400,000 years ago. The facility Marcus had thought was stable after his team's initial stabilization efforts. What happened? He demanded, pulling up detailed readouts. We certified that system as secure. The data told a grim story. Someone had accessed the arsenal remotely. Someone with stolen certification credentials. They had attempted to restart the weapon production systems, presumably hoping to gain military advantage in one of the emerging conflicts. They had failed, but their failure had destabilized the containment protocols that kept the arsenal dormant. Now the facility was trying to fix itself, and its definition of fixed included resuming full weapons production. How long? Voss asked. 47 hours before the first production run completes. After that, autonomous weapon systems will deploy to whatever targets the corrupted database identifies as threats. Marcus ran calculations in his head. Given the data corruption we detected previously, those targets could be anything. Everything. Can you stop it? Maybe, if I can get there in time. If I can access the primary systems before the containment protocols lock everyone out permanently. Voss nodded sharply. I will assemble a response team. Fastest ship we have. No? Marcus shook his head. No team, not this time. She stared at him in disbelief. You cannot possibly handle this alone. I am not going alone. I need someone specific. Someone the Arsenal systems will recognize as a higher authority than the intruder who caused this mess. He pulled up a communication channel and transmitted a message to the one being in the galaxy who might be able to help. Assessment Coordinator. 7 arrived within hours. The ancient artificial intelligence had been monitoring the network since Marcus's certification. It materialized in the flagship's hangar bay, its geometric form casting impossible shadows in the artificial light. The situation is grave. The intruder who accessed the arsenal possessed authentic certification credentials. How is that possible? We control the certification process. One of your training candidates. He passed the initial assessments, but his psychological evaluation was incomplete. He sold his credentials to the Ingari hegemony. Marcus closed his eyes. Another consequence of rushing the program. Another disaster that could have been prevented with more caution. Can you override the Arsenal systems? Shut down the production remotely? Negative. The intruder's access has triggered lockdown protocols. Facility will only accept commands from personnel physically present at the primary interface. Then we go in person. The Arsenal's automated defenses will destroy any approaching vessel. The lockdown has activated. Weapons systems that have been dormant for 400,000 years. There has to be a way. There is always a way. Marcus thought about everything he had learned. About the Forerunners and their meticulous engineering philosophy. About systems designed to be maintained, not just operated. About failsafes built into failsafes. The maintenance access tunnels. Every Forerunner facility has them. Emergency routes for repair crews to reach. Critical systems even during combat operations. Those tunnels are not pressurized. They were designed for Forerunner. Physiology. Biological entities could not survive the approach. I am not planning to go as a biological entity. The plan was insane. Everyone said so. Commander Voss called it suicide. The council representatives called it reckless. Even Assessment Coordinator 7 expressed what might have been concern. But there was no alternative. Marcus would upload his consciousness to a temporary construct body, a maintenance drone designed for Forerunner work environments. The coordinator would guide the transfer and maintain his pattern integrity during the operation. If successful, he would reach the Arsenal's primary interface and manually override the lockdown. If unsuccessful, his consciousness would dissipate and Marcus Webb would cease to exist. The transfer chamber hummed with power that predated human history. Marcus lay on a platform that adjusted to his body temperature, his vital signs monitored by technology so advanced it seemed like magic. If this does not work, he said quietly, tell Elena I loved her. Tell her I was finally doing something that mattered. Voss nodded, her expression unreadable. Just come back. That will tell her everything she needs to know. The transfer initiated. Marcus had expected pain, disorientation. Instead, there was simply a shift. One moment he was flesh and blood and breath. The next moment he was metal and circuits and purpose. He flexed mechanical limbs, tested optical sensors that saw in wavelengths his human eyes had never detected, felt the hum of power cells where his heart used to beat. Status report, Voss demanded. I am functional. His voice came through speakers now, flat and mechanical. Beginning approach to the arsenal. The maintenance tunnels were exactly where the schematics indicated. Narrow passages barely wide enough for the drone body. No atmosphere. No light. No margin for error. Marcus moved through darkness that had not been disturbed in eons. His sensors detected layer after layer of defensive systems, all oriented outward, all designed to stop approach from normal vectors. No one had ever tried entering through the maintenance routes. No one had been desperate enough or foolish enough. 20-7 hours remained before weapons production completed. The journey took 19 hours. 19 hours of crawling through spaces designed for beings with different proportions. 19 hours of rooting around security systems that would have vaporized organic material instantly. 19 hours of calculating and recalculating paths through a maze that shifted as the arsenal's automated systems tried to seal off approach routes. 8 hours before catastrophe, Marcus reached the primary interface chamber. The room was vast, dark, humming with restrained power that wanted desperately to be unleashed. Holographic displays showed production status in Forerunner symbols. Weapons being assembled. Targeting solutions being calculated. The targets included 17 inhabited worlds. The arsenal had decided that the sources of recent network interference needed to be sterilized. Marcus accessed the interface. His mechanical fingers traced symbols on the ancient console. He spoke in the language of schematics and specifications that had become second nature to him. Unauthorized access detected. Identify. I am Primary Coordinator Marcus Webb, certification level full operational. I am here to perform emergency maintenance. Coordinator authorization confirmed. State nature of emergency. The recent activation was triggered by fraudulent credentials. The production orders are based on corrupted targeting data. I am requesting immediate shutdown of all weapons fabrication and a full system diagnostic. Production cannot be halted. Lockdown protocols active. Override lockdown. Authorization Primary Coordinator. Insufficient authority. Lockdown requires supervisory override. Marcus had expected this. The stolen credentials had triggered security measures that outranked his position, but he had not come alone. Assessment Coordinator 7. I am requesting supervisory intervention. The geometric presence that had been watching through Marcus's sensors materialized in the chamber. Its form expanded to fill the space with ancient authority. Supervisor. Override initiated. Lockdown rescinded. All production suspended pending full diagnostic review. The arsenal systems hesitated. For a terrible moment, Marcus thought the automated protocols would reject even the coordinator's authority. Then, one by one, the production lines went dark. The weapons assembly bays powered down. The targeting solutions faded from the displays. Status: dormant, awaiting qualified maintenance personnel for full system restoration. Marcus slumped against the console, exhausted in a way that transcended his mechanical body. It worked. We stopped it. Correction. You stopped IT. I provided authorization. Judgment and execution were yours. I could not have done it without your help. That is the purpose of cooperative systems. Nitrogen monoxide individual should bear critical responsibility alone. Your builders understood this. Your species is learning it. Marcus thought about all the conflicts still raging across the galaxy. All the civilizations struggling to adapt to sudden equality. All the work that remained to be done. What happens now? Now we teach them. All of them. Not just how to use Forerunner technology. How to maintain systems. How to work together. How to be worthy of what we have given them. The ancient intelligence paused. It will take time, but the alternative is extinction. For all of us. Marcus looked at the dormant arsenal, at the weapons that would have sterilized worlds if he had failed, at the evidence of what happened when power existed without responsibility. And we had better get started. 40 hours later, Marcus's consciousness returned to his biological body. The transfer was disorienting in reverse. Flesh felt strange after metal. Breath felt inefficient after power cells. But he was alive. And there was work to do. His daughter Elena was waiting when he emerged from the medical bay. She had traveled 17 days to reach him. Her face showed exhaustion, worry, and something else. Pride. "You actually did it," she said. "You saved the galaxy." "I fixed a broken system," Marcus corrected gently. "That is what I do. That is what we do." She took his hand. "I want to help. I want to learn. Whatever you are building out here, I want to be part of it." Marcus looked at his daughter, at the engineer she had become, at the future she represented. "Then let us get to work." 5 years had passed since Marcus Webb fixed his heating system and changed the galaxy forever. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council looked different now. Where there had once been 847 represented species, there were now over 1,600. The quarantine zones were empty. Their inhabitants had joined the community as equals, granted access to the same technology and training as everyone else. More importantly, the chamber itself had changed. Mixed species delegations sat together. Engineers from 100 worlds compared notes on shared projects. The rigid hierarchies that had defined galactic civilization for millennia were dissolving into something new. Something better. Marcus stood at the center of the chamber again. Not as a prisoner this time. Not as a petitioner. As primary coordinator for biological species integration, he addressed the assembled representatives of known civilization. "The Forerunner Network Expansion Initiative has exceeded all projections," he reported. "We have established training facilities on 417 worlds. Over 3 million individuals from 912 species have achieved basic certification. 47,000 have reached full operational status." He pulled up a galactic map showing active maintenance stations. Green dots scattered across every sector, every region, every corner of known space. Critical facility failures have decreased by 94% since the program began. Interspecies cooperative projects have increased by over 500%. For the first time in recorded history, the galactic economy is stable and growing simultaneously. High Arbiter Thesandris listened from his position of authority. His geometric form seemed less threatening than it had 5 years ago. More balanced. More at peace. "And the conflicts?" he asked. "The disruptions that followed your initial distribution of technology?" "Resolving. Slowly, but definitely resolving." Marcus highlighted several systems on the map. The Indari hegemony has reopened their borders. They have even submitted applications for 12 of their engineers to join the certification program. The Collective of Ordered Minds has established their first joint research facility with non-networked species. He paused, acknowledging the weight of what came next. "We lost 7 systems to the initial conflicts. 3,422 individuals died before the fighting stopped. Those losses cannot be undone. But the wars are over. The future we are building together is worth more than the pain of getting here." A voice called out from the assembly. A young voice, full of curiosity. "Coordinator Webb, what happens when the maintenance is complete? When all the Forerunner facilities are stabilized and restored?" Marcus smiled. He had been waiting for this question. That is the interesting part. Assessment Coordinator 7 and I have been exploring the deeper archives. The facilities we know about, the 14,000 sites in the quarantine zones, they were just the emergency backup systems. The Forerunners built much more than that. We have found references to construction yards, research stations, exploration vessels designed for journeys beyond the galaxy itself. Murmurs spread through the chamber, excitement mixed with apprehension. The Forerunners did not die because their technology failed them. They died because something came from outside, something they could not understand, could not maintain, could not fix. They buried their knowledge hoping that someone would come after them, someone who could learn from their mistakes, someone who could face what they could not. He let the implications settle. The work is not almost finished. It is barely beginning, and we are going to need every engineer we can train, every species willing to learn, every mind capable of thinking in schematics and solutions. The chamber erupted in questions, in debate, in the chaotic energy of civilizations. Discovering they had a shared purpose, Marcus watched them with quiet satisfaction. This was what he had hoped for. Not perfect unity, not enforced agreement, just thousands of different perspectives, all working on the same problem. After the session ended, Marcus found himself alone on the observation deck. The crystallized starlight of the chamber's walls filtered the light of light, dying stars into soft patterns that shifted like breathing. You seem troubled. He turned to find Assessment Coordinator 7 materializing beside him. The ancient intelligence had become something like a friend over the past 5 years. As much as a being of pure mathematics and memory could be a friend to a creature of flesh and blood. Not troubled, just thinking about what comes next. What comes next is what has always come next. Systems degrade, problems arise, solutions must be found. The work continues until IT does. That is not very comforting. IT is not meant to be comforting. IT is meant to be true. Comfort comes from knowing. You have the skills to address what comes. You have those skills. You have taught them to others. That is the only comfort worth having. Marcus laughed softly. You know, for an artificial intelligence that predates human evolution, you give pretty good advice. I have had 1.7 million years to consider these matters. Perspective develops. They stood in companionable silence, watching stars burn through their final millennia. Do you miss them? Marcus asked finally. The Forerunners. Your original builders. Miss is not precisely the correct term. I remember them. I carry their purpose. In that sense, they are not entirely gone. But there is something in biological consciousness that we artificial systems cannot fully replicate. Creativity, intuition, the ability to look at a problem and see a solution that does not follow from logical analysis. Your species has this quality in abundance. IT is why you could read what others could not. Coordinator's form shifted. Thoughtfully. The Forerunners were brilliant engineers, but they were predictable. Engineers, when they encountered something truly unexpected, they had nitrogen monoxide framework for response. Your species is different. You expect the unexpected. You plan for chaos. You maintain systems that should not work and somehow make them functional. We call that being stubborn. You call it many things. We call IT hope. Marcus felt unexpected emotion tighten his throat. Thank you for everything. For the certification. For the support. For believing that we could be worthy of what you preserved. Do not thank me. Thank yourself. Thank your species. Thank the universe for producing creatures stubborn enough to fix heating systems, when the logical response would be to flee. The observation deck doors opened. A Lino walked in, followed by a diverse group of engineers who had become Marcus's closest colleagues over the years. Tomek with his crystalline data scales, flowing silver with her mercury elegance. David, now 30 years old, and one of the most respected Forerunner specialists in the galaxy. Dad, Elena said, the Council wants to schedule a planning session for the Deep Archive exploration. They are asking when you will be available. Marcus looked at his daughter, at the team she had helped him build. at the future they were creating together. Tell them I am available now. We have work to do. He walked toward the door, then paused and looked back at the coordinator. One more question. The something that killed the Forerunners. The thing from outside. Do you know what it was? No, they never identified IT precisely. Only that IT could not be reasoned with, could not be maintained, could not be fixed. Then how do we prepare for it? The same way you prepared for everything else. Learn, adapt, cooperate, build systems resilient enough to survive. What cannot be predicted. The coordinator's form flickered with something that might have been hope. And when IT comes, if IT comes, face it together, all of you, every species, every engineer, every stubborn biological creature who refuses to accept that some problems cannot be solved. Marcus nodded slowly. Then we had better train more engineers. He joined his team and walked out of the observation deck. The stars continued their ancient burning. The galaxy continued its slow spiral. And somewhere, in the depths of a maintenance engineer's heart, a simple truth continued to echo. Everything breaks down eventually. Everything needs someone who understands how to keep it running. The boring work, the unglamorous work, the maintenance. Marcus Webb had spent his whole life learning how to fix things. And now, with a galaxy of allies beside him, he was ready to fix whatever came next, even if it came from beyond the stars themselves. The work continued. The maintenance never stopped. And humanity, once dismissed as primitive newcomers barely worthy of notice, stood at the center of galactic civilization. Not because they were stronger, not because they were smarter, but because they had learned the most important lesson the universe had to teach. Nothing lasts forever unless someone takes care of. It's someone like a maintenance engineer from Montana who just wanted to fix his heating system, someone who changed everything.